Okay, so up today in our Declutter series is bronzers and highlighters. We're going to be tackling face palettes that have a combination of bronzers and highlights and blushes in a separate video. That will probably be the one I film next. But today we're going to tackle bronzers and highlighters. Up first is my bronzer collection. There is a few contour products in here as well, which we'll talk about as we get to them. I'm going to kind of organize these like I did blushes out by brand first. We're going to talk about the formulas we like, and then hopefully start to set aside some ones that I just don't think work for my complexion or for my preferences nowadays. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out the first section and we'll get started. These are all of my drugstore bronzers. I have quite a collection going. In fact, now that I look at my high-end bronzers here that are off to the side, I actually realize that I have a lot more drugstore than I do high-end. All right, so I'm gonna go and focus on this back row here first. This glaring thing that is picking up in the light like crazy and reflecting back everything is a Boots number 7. This is their Shimmer Palette Bronze. I do actually love the packaging for the Boots line. This looks like a shimmer strip, almost a la Bobbi Brown. The color, the formula itself is super creamy and super buttery. However, it is a straight up bronze on my skin and very, very, very reflective. And even when I blend it out, it still ends up looking incredibly bronze and incredibly orange and very metallic on my skin. And I just can't get this one to work for me. If anything, this would almost be a lovely highlight for someone with darker skin tone. For me personally, I think this shade is a pass, and I'm going to pass this along to someone who can get more use out of it. Okay, one in this back row that I know I want to keep is this. The writing on the front of this is completely worn off, but it is the Makeup Revolution Vivid Baked Highlighter in the shade Ready to Go. I purchased this, gosh, over a year ago. It is a baked product that feels kind of stiff to the touch, but I found that it blends out on my skin incredibly well. It gives a very nice, natural sort of bronze color. This is about as shimmery as I like to go with my bronzer, but I think it's a very natural color. It's not too warm, it's not too cool. I really enjoy how this applies. I think it lasts a long time, and I believe these are only like $5 at Ulta, so I will be hanging on to this one for sure. Okay, moving over, this is actually a Wet n Wild powder. This is part of their Photo Focus line that was just released this spring. This is actually not technically a bronzer. It is in the shade 926 Golden Tan. However, this is actually a beautiful light toned sort of matte, very natural finish formula on my skin. It's not too orange. It blends out beautifully. It's very subtle. And I really like the tone of it on my skin. I don't know how well these are going to be picking up on these in this lighting, but I like the tone of this on my skin. So I think this is a good pale person bronzer. And I think that's something I forget to do on a regular basis, which is find a powder in just a deeper shade and see if it works for my skin tone. This is actually a City Color Be Matte blush in the shade Toasted Coconut. This is obviously matte. This is just a little dark for my skin tone. These bronzers are, or excuse me, these blushes are highly pigmented, and this one just comes off way too deep on my arm. It's a little orange for my skin tone on top of that, so I think I'm going to pass this one along. Another one that just didn't work out for me, this is from CoverGirl. This is their True Blend bronzer. I loved the blush. They only had one shade of this bronzer, and it's one of those baked sort of swirl bronzers. It's very soft to the touch, it's very pigmented, but kind of like that Boots bronzer, it's very metallic, and it's just too dark and too orange toned for my skin. I think if you were medium to deep, you'd probably love this. I wish, like the blushes, they'd come out with other tones because I like the formula of this. But this one just isn't for me. I've tried to make it work several times, and every time, no matter how light-handed I get with it, it just never looks right. So I'm going to pass this one along. Okay, moving into the next row, let's talk about these two e.l.f. bronzers. One here is in Cool Bronze, And these both have kind of like 4 squares. They have a great mirror in them, by the way. This one kind of has 4 squares of product, as does this one. So this is the cool bronzer. This is the warm bronzer. The cool bronzer is actually all matte, and the warm bronzer has some shimmery flecks in it. I'm just going to swirl these together and swatch them on my wrists real fast so you can see. So the bottom you can see is a lot more orange, and it's got a nice sheen to it. The sheen doesn't totally scare me, but it leans a little gold, and I just didn't find it to be that flattering on my skin tone. This honestly could be more of a contour shade, but I kind of liked the fact that you could pick up some more white to lighten it depending on how tan you were, and as a fair person I thought that was really nice. I liked that it had a sort of warmer reddish tone down here, so if you wanted to kind of pick up these two, you could kind of do a warm bronzer, or you could almost use this as a contour slash bronzer. So for me, the cool one just works better. I think the pigmentation on both of these is great. I know a lot of people think that the warm bronzer from e.l.f. is kind of their holy grail product. It just doesn't work out for my skin tone. So I think I'm gonna pass along the warm bronzer and keep the cool one. Okay, up next, this is the new Milani Baked bronzer in Dolce. This is number 9. This just came out this spring. They've had baked bronzers out before, but they seem to have a lot more gold glitter in them. This one does have gold in it, but it's definitely not as intense as some of the other golds, and I don't find that I get any sort of shimmer on my skin. It's very natural and satin. The tone of this one I actually think is about as warm as I like to go, but I think it blends out on the skin incredibly well. It is definitely buildable. You get a little bit of shimmer on your skin, but not a ton. This is one of those kind of easy to wear, easy to blend shades that is definitely buildable. I think this is meant for light to maybe medium skin tones, but I think even medium would find this too light. So I've actually really enjoyed this since I got it this spring, and I'm gonna hang on to this one for right now. Let's stick with Milani here. This is one Milani product that never quite worked out for me. This is enormous, and part of it is Milani likes to hide brushes down in here, and this one actually has a pop-out drawer that has a giant brush. This is another one of those bronzers that gets super metallic super fast, and I get that that is a very heavy swatch. It has a lot of glitter in it, which is one of the things I can't get past. It's not to say I couldn't blend this out to a pretty color. The glitter in here is pretty dang intense, and I just don't care for it on my body, on my face. I thought maybe I would use it on my shoulders in the summertime, but I haven't used this. I've tried it. I'm just not a fan. So let's talk about these two Physicians Formula bronzers. One is the Original Bronze Booster. They do a lot of bronze booster products. This is probably, I believe, the original one. And then this is the Butter Bronzer. Unfortunately, I've traveled with this enough that it no longer shuts, so it kind of just flops around. This is, I should mention, in the Butter Bronzer, this is the light bronzer, not the, I think they have one that was just bronzer and then light bronzer. This is the light bronzer. I've heard some people with fair skin say this was too orange for them. For me personally, I thought this was actually a really pretty color. It is a satin bronzer, it's buildable, it lasts all day, I love the smell, I think it's phenomenal. The Bronze Booster is super similar. And to be honest, as I sit here and stare at them, I think they're so similar. And I prefer the tone on the Butter Bronzer just a little bit more. So I actually think I'm gonna keep the Butter Bronzer and I'm gonna pass along the Bronze Booster. All right, let's talk about one that's brand new to my collection and I really can't even comment on yet. This is the Essence Matte Powder Bronzer, and this is in the shade 01 Natural. I just picked this up. I haven't even swatched the ding dong thing. It has a little bit of a scent to it. Kind of a suntan lotion scent. Seems like it's going to be nice. Doesn't seem like it's going to be too dark. Might be a little orange on my skin. I don't know. So I'm going to keep this one, play around with it. I'm always looking for affordable options that I can work into my collection. We'll see how I feel about this one. I like that it's an affordable matte bronzer option. So yeah, I'm going to hang on to this for the time being and play around with it more. All right, let's talk about the L'Oreal bronzer. Now, this I believe is part of a permanent collection in Europe. I only saw it on a display for a little while here in the US last year. This is the Glam bronzer, and this is in the shade 01 Pale Light. This is a very neutral, almost cool toned bronzer, and it has a shimmer in it. It's incredibly soft, and I just don't feel like I have anything else quite like it in my collection that is going to give me that more cool toned look. Just look at it next to the Wet n Wild blush here, or sorry, bronzer here. This is Ticket to Brazil, and you can see how much more cool toned the L'Oreal one is. I really like how it wears on my skin, so I'm going to hang on to this just because it is so unique. All right, let's talk about these two bronzers. These are Wet n Wild bronzers. The first one is, like I said, Ticket to Brazil. This is a shimmery bronzer, and it is just too orange on me. When I put this on and blend it out, it almost always looks orange on my skin, and it's a pretty intense orange. Formula is stunning. I seriously wish I could make this work because I really love how this applies. I love how it blends, but for me personally, it's just not the right shade. So this one is gonna get passed along. On the other hand, this one here came out, I think, last spring. This is the Mega Glow Contouring Palette. This is in Dulce de Leche. These powders feel incredibly creamy. This is a beautiful, beautiful bronzer shade. It's going to look very dark, but what I found is that it blends out very beautifully on the skin. It's incredibly creamy. I've heard a lot of people say that it is a dupe for the Marc Jacobs. And you can just see the difference in tone on my wrist between the Ticket to Brazil and the Dulce de Leche combo. So I do really like this. I think it's a great bronzer slash contour shade that's incredibly affordable at the drugstore. So I will be hanging on to this one. Okay, so these are my high-end bronzers. I don't have a ton, as you can see. So let's start with this little random guy here. This is a single pan that you can buy from Sephora. This is actually a contour shade. It is really nice, and I actually keep this in a separate Z palette if I'm traveling with some loose blushes. I really like this shade. It blends out incredibly well. I think it's a good contour shade for fair people. I believe you can also get this in an individual compact if you didn't want to buy a single like this for a magnetic palette. So I am going to hang on to this one. This is Tarte's Park Avenue Princess, and I believe they have both a matte and a shimmer version. This is a shimmer version, and it's just a little too deep for my skin tone. Even when I try and blend it out, even when I'm light-handed, it tends to go very gold on me very quickly, and I just don't know if it's the right color for me. So I'm gonna pass this on. This is not a full size. This was kind of like a deluxe sample that was so huge that I thought I'd never get through it. So I'm gonna pass this along to somebody who would get more use out of it. One that I do know I'm keeping here is from Jouer. This is the only Jouer bronzer I have. They have both a matte and a glowy one. This is the matte bronzer in Suntan. This shade is actually really flattering. It's not too orange. It's definitely more of a neutral bronzer. So if you like that, not too orange, not too cool toned, I think this one would really work well for you. I think that this is really great for travel because it's super small. I love this. I think it holds up really well for all day wear, and I'm going to keep it in my collection. All right, let's talk about this one. If you saw my blush declutter, I got rid of the Too Faced Sweethearts blush. This is actually in Sweet Tea. This came out last year. This is a Baked Luminous Glow bronzer. I love this. This is one of my favorite glowy bronzers because it's just not too much on the skin. It gives just a subtle glow. The shade is really pretty. I love that you can concentrate the shade either on the left or the right, depending on how much you want to build it up. It's very soft. It's super glowy. I just think it is so pretty on the skin, and I definitely would recommend this one. I think people with fair skin can wear this just by concentrating the blush a little, or brush a little bit more on this side versus this side, but even swirled together, I don't find this to be too extreme for my fair skin. So I love this bronzer. I will be hanging on to it. Bulky packaging and all. Now I actually want to compare all three of these here, so I'm going to move on to Benefit's Hoola and Hoola Lite. I actually have a blog post on all of these, and I was super excited when they launched Hoola Lite because I thought to myself, I'm like, oh my goodness, these shades or I finally am going to have the perfect bronzer shade, because I actually love the original Hoola. A lot of fair people have complained that it's too dark or too orange for them. I actually really loved it. I am going to swatch these for you here, but I'm also going to insert some swatches of the two of them side by side. And here is my ultimate feeling about these bronzers. I think heavy swatches makes it look like the Hoola Lite would be a very great bronzer for people with fair skin. However, I find it to be very yellow, and I think you can see that from the swatch that I've put up on the screen here. I just find that it's kind of unflattering. Now, if you had a more yellow toned skin, if your skin was naturally warm and you were fair, that might actually be the most flattering bronzer you've ever tried on in your life. For me, every time I put it on my skin, it just made me look a little bit jaundice. So I am actually going to keep the original Hoola, and I'm just going to plan on using a light hand with it. And then I'm going to pass along the Hoola Lite, and maybe someone with a different skin tone than me will actually enjoy this light version quite a bit more. Now these three are actually all matte bronzers. So this is the Too Faced Milk Chocolate Soleil, and I kind of want to open these up because I've been wanting to compare them to see how different they are. I've had this one in my collection a lot because these two were actually ones that I've picked up this spring. This is the Laura Geller Beach Matte Hydrating Bronzer in Sunrise Fair. And this is the Sephora Matte Bronzer in Light Antigua. So I wanted to kind of see these side by side, and it's kind of what I thought. So the Chocolate Soleil bronzer definitely seems to be the most cool toned, and the Antigua looks very orange in comparison. I'm gonna swatch these two side by side. I'm gonna do heavy swatches so I can really see the tone. Yeah, you can see it's a lot more red toned. So that is the Sephora and that is the Too Faced. I'm curious to see how the Laura Geller, I really like the feel of this, by the way, bronzer looks in comparison. Yeah, it's definitely closer to the Milk Chocolate Soleil, but it doesn't actually even seem to be as pigmented. So that is the Laura Geller, that is the Milk Chocolate Soleil from Too Faced, and this is Antigua, the matte bronzer from Sephora collection. I think I'm going to hang on to these two. It might be slightly redundant, and I'm going to pass along Antigua. I think it's just too orange for my skin tone. Well, this is what I'm keeping in this kind of teal mint bin, and this is what I'm decluttering here on the other side. In total, we are keeping 13 bronzers and contour products, and we are decluttering 9. So that is about 41% of my collection that I am decluttering. So I'm actually feeling pretty good about that. I think the choices I have in here are ones that I would definitely reach for. Like I said, there's a few products in here that I'm still trying out that are new that may or may not work out for me in the future. But for the time being, that is bronzers. Feeling pretty good about that. We are going to move on to highlighters next, and I'm going to cry a little bit because I have, so much deep love for highlighters. So yeah, let me go gather up highlighters and we'll be right back. So now we're moving on to highlighters. I will admit that highlighters make me really flipping happy. I love all different kinds of highlighters. I will pretty much wear everything from super metallic to super natural. I do think I have certain preferences. My one pet peeve is glitter. You put glitter in a highlighter and I want to scream my head off. So glitter is going to be a no pass for me. If we run across any in here that I feel like are super glittery, those are gonna go for sure. But I'm not gonna lie, this is my weakness. This may be one of the tougher declutters. I feel like I can be pretty tough on almost all the other products in my collection, but I don't know, highlighters, they make me happy. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. I'm gonna go off, get organized, put them out here by brand, and then we're gonna talk through them. Okay, so here are a bunch of drugstore highlighters we're going to talk through. Let's start here on the left. These 6 here are actually all Makeup Revolution. This one here is actually my oldest one. In fact, you can see the writing on the front of these tends to fade over time, but this is their Vivid Baked Highlighter in Radiant Lights. This was one of my first highlighters that I bought. I've made quite a good divot in this puppy. I think this is a stunning natural sort of pearly highlight. It lightens the skin. There's absolutely no shimmer to it. It just gives a very soft, sort of lit from within glow. If you like a more natural highlight, I would totally pick up Radiant Lights. I just can't say enough good things about it. I know a few people have complained about it being dry. It does feel drier to the touch, but it's not powdery, and it goes on the skin incredibly well. It doesn't emphasize pores and texture. Really, really like this one, so I'm definitely hanging on to this. This is a newer one that was just released at Ulta. This is another Vivid Baked highlighter, but this is in matte lights. It's this really interesting sort of white base with sort of a pinky shift running through it, which I thought was really interesting. It's not quite as shiny as maybe the first one I showed you, so that is it here on the left, and then the Vivid Baked highlighter in Radiant Lights is right here. I actually like them both. I think this one's a little bit lighter and brighter, but I actually really do like how this one looks on the skin as well. Okay, so these two are strobe highlighters from Makeup Revolution. These remind me of the pattern that Laura Mercier does in their highlighters. So I think they're copying them a little bit in this. This one here that's more pinky is called Moon Glow, and the one that's more white is Everglow Lights. I believe they have 4 of these at Ulta right now. This pinky one, I am actually going to move out of my highlighter collection and move into my face powder. It's very natural, but I honestly think this is a dupe for one of the Hourglass powders. It is a very natural highlight. I'm not saying you couldn't use it as a highlight, but to me, this almost feels like an all-over face powder just to add a little bit of glow. So I'm going to keep this, but I'm going to move it out of my highlighter collection and into my face powder collection. The one in Everglow Lights, if I'm being totally honest, I haven't used a ton, but it's pretty bright white. And this one, just because it is so much whiter than the first highlighter, because it's a lot brighter, it actually gives a very natural highlight. Sitting here thinking this to myself, I'm going to declutter the baked highlighter in matte lights. I'm just going to set it aside for a dupe video, but I am actually going to declutter it, and I'm just going to keep the strobe light one. I think the texture on it is a lot better. I think it gives that natural glow that I'm looking for, and I don't feel like I need both of these in my collection. Okay, so the next ones I have are their triple baked highlighters in Goddess of Faith and Goddess of Love. These are going to look very familiar to you because they look a lot like the boxes that the Too Faced bronzers and Too Faced blushes come in. Too Faced has not done a boxed version in a highlighter yet like this. So Goddess of Faith is more of a pinky toned, and it's definitely on the metallic side. Like, I would put this in the metallic highlighter category. I put both of these in the metallic. So whereas the other ones were very soft and natural, these are going to be more of your wham bam highlighters. I actually love both of these. I'm not gonna lie. So the one on this one here is Goddess of Faith. It is a pinky sort of silver toned highlight, looks beautiful on my skin. And then Goddess of Love is a duochrome peach highlighter that is not too dark for my skin tone. I find a lot of those duochrome sort of duochromed highlighters can look a little off on my skin, and this one actually doesn't. So bulky packaging and all, I'm actually going to be hanging on to both of these. This is the Physicians Formula Nude Natural. It doesn't have anything on the back. This is a shimmer strip. I wish it wasn't in such bulky packaging. It's got a mirror down here with a brush, but I really do like these shimmer strips. I really only focus on kind of the lighter shades here, but when you do that, you get a beautiful sort of pinky highlight that kind of is not super metallic, not super natural. It kind of bridges that in-between gap. It's very smooth, goes on the skin lovely. I think it is probably one of the better drugstore highlighters. It's been out a while, but I think it's definitely one worth putting in your collection, especially if you're somebody who self-tans or goes from a light to a medium skin tone in the summertime. This highlight will grow with you. You can also use these as eyeshadows. I have reached for these shades down here as eyeshadows before, so I love this one, not getting rid of it. Let's talk about these 4 JCat Beauty highlighters that I have here. So these two here I picked up from their original launch about a year ago, and then this year they actually relaunched, oh gosh, I think 4 more. So I think there's 8 in total. I initially picked up the 2 that I thought I was going to like the most, and then I picked up 2 more this year. So here's what I'm going to tell you. The original 2 that I purchased, I'm going to be decluttering. So the first one here is White Goddess. This is one that looked white online, and it looks like it'd be one that really does well for my skin, but it is an incredibly yellow gold, and it is just almost bordering on green. I don't know how well you're going to see that green tone. It looks very strange on my skin. I don't think this is meant for somebody with neutral / cool undertones to their skin being this fair. So this one is going to be a pass for me. Another one that is a pass for me is the JCat one in Pink Goddess 103. This is the one that I was hoping was going to be the best for me. Now, what I'm hoping you can see here, besides the fact that it's too dark for me, is just how much ding dong glitter there is in this highlighter. It is chock full of glitter, 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 chunky glitter. It is a beautiful shade. I actually put this on my eyes and I really liked it, but I have a lot of eyeshadows that I can use instead of this and get a similar effect. So I actually think both of these are going to go by the wayside. These 2 are newer to my collection. So this is a true champagne. This is 104 Crystal Sands. And I will admit I haven't used these a ton yet. So this is about as gold as I go. And I think this is pretty. I want to play around with it a bit more. I'm actually going to set this aside because I want to see how this compares to a few others in my collection. So I think I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to put it to the side for the time being. Last but not least, this is the Bella Rose. And this is a very pretty champagne silver. This is probably the lightest of the ones that they do, and I don't have a lot of this very bright sort of champagne silver color going right now. So I do think this is one that I am going to absolutely keep. This goes in the same category though as those Makeup Revolution highlighters as far as being very intense and very metallic. So I think if you like the tone of either one of these 3, grab them. I would avoid the Pink Goddess one unless you like glitter. If you like glitter, go for it. So I'm going to keep this one, pass these 2 along. I'm going to set this one to the side and think about it because I'm just not sure how much I want to keep it. Okay, let's move on to this one. I was super excited to see this one come out. This is Hard Candy. This is a prismatic highlighter in iridescent pearl. I'm so excited to pick this up. I thought it might be a really pretty, unique iridescent color. And when you heavily swatch it with your finger, you can definitely see the purple shift in it. However, this does not pick up with a brush at all. It looks like you put nothing on your skin. There's definitely a micro glitter in there. The only way I've found to make this work is to actually wet my brush with 6+, and ain't nobody got time for that with a highlighter. I didn't feel like it then went on the skin very well. It was patchy, so unfortunately, this one is a fail for me. Okay, let's talk about this one. This is the Catrice Cosmetics Highlighting Powder. This is in the shade Stardust number 10. Has this beautiful sort of quilted package or pattern to it. It is got a slight pinky tone to it. I would say this is somewhere in between metallic and natural, and I like these kinds. I mean, this is a kind of highlighter that I will definitely reach for. I like how small and compact it is. It definitely has more of a silvery undertone, very flattering on my skin tone, so I like this highlighter quite a bit. I like how sleek it is. I've traveled with it quite a few times, so this one is definitely staying in my collection. All right, this one here goes in the Kathleen Lights Made Me Buy It category. This is the Pixie Glowy Powder in Santorini Sunset. This was a collab with Aspie Novard. This is at Target right now as of filming this. I don't know if this is permanent or not. Because it's a collab, my gut would tell me no. I do really like this. I think it's very pretty. It is, once again, about as gold as I will go, but once again, it kind of straddles that line of being too intense versus too metallic. It's very soft and pretty on the skin. I do wonder, hold please, pull on that JCat one. Actually, see, the JCat one is actually a little bit brighter. So that is JCat here versus Santorini Sunset. And now comparing these two, I think I will reach for the JCat more than the Pixie one. So I actually think, as for as pretty of a highlighter as this is, I think there are some people with slightly deeper skin tones that will get a lot more use out of this. So, okay, last up in this little section, this is a Boots number 7. This goes in the Tati Made Me Buy It section. This is their Shimmer Palette in Caramel. This is very pretty. It is definitely high shine, not a lot of glitter. I just find that it is a little too deep on my skin tone, and I think that it is stunning. I think it's just something that would work on someone with a deeper skin tone. Probably more of a medium skin tone would really enjoy this. So if they ever came out with a slightly lighter version of this, I would absolutely consider picking it up. But for the time being, I think this one's going to be a pass. Okay, round 2 of drugstore highlighters. Oh, no. One I forgot. I have got a ton of e.l.f. Wet n Wild highlighters here that I want to talk through. One that I know I'm just going to instantly put in my keep pile is this Milani highlighter. This is number 10 in their Strobe Light powder. I picked this up this spring. This is stunning. This goes on that kind of natural highlighter, not too intense, not too stroby, and blends incredibly well, lasts all day. I just think this is probably one of my favorite drugstore highlighters right now. So this is hands down staying in the pile. And let's kind of grab some of the non-Wet n Wild ones. This is from Essence. This is the Pure Nude highlighter. This is the one that blew up everywhere on social media probably about 6 months ago. They just have one color of it, so it is just 10 Be My Highlight. And this is one that doesn't necessarily lighten my skin a whole lot. In fact, it's almost skin toned, but it doesn't look dark on me either. So this is one of those highlights that probably looks brighter on more people or different skin tones than me. To me, this is almost the color of my skin. So I actually do like this, which is an oddity. Mostly because it's natural, and mostly because it just gives me a lit from within glow. Doesn't make me look like I'm wearing highlighter at all. It doesn't do anything to lift my cheek or add that brightness, but I really do like it. So I'm going to keep it. It is an oddity in my collection, and for that reason alone, I think I want to keep it. All right, this is a NYX Duochrome highlighter. These just came out this spring. I picked up the shade Snow Rose. So it definitely has a white base to it, but it has a really strong pink shift. It's a very smooth highlighter. I don't wear a lot of duochrome highlighters, if I'm being completely frank with you, but I think the formula on this is stunning. I am going to declutter this only because I have something else in my collection that I like just a smidge more than this that also has this duochrome shift to it. So I'm going to declutter this. All right, let's talk about this. This is an e.l.f. HD highlighting powder. This came out fairly recently in several different shades. This is the shade Starlight Glow. And it's a very pretty highlighter. I actually traveled with this. This is about as gold as I like to go with my highlighters. I'm going to declutter this only because I know I have a dupe in my collection that I want to keep instead, but there's nothing wrong with this highlighter. It's super pretty, it's super glowy, there's no glitter in it. If you like sort of a light champagne gold color, you would really like this. All right, let's talk about these two e.l.f. baked highlighters. This is Moonlight Pearls, and this one is Pinktastic. Pinktastic, I think, is actually a blush, but I've heard a lot of people say it's a dupe for Champagne Pop, so I picked it up. Both of these are actually very pretty, but you do need to take a tissue, rub the first layer off, and then you'll get some intensity. So this is Pinktastic here on the right side, and then this is Moonlit Pearls here on the left. These are both very pretty. They come off the same on the skin, which is why I say even though this is listed as a blush, it really is a highlighter. I want to keep one of these, so I'm going to keep the lighter one. I'm going to keep Moonlight Pearls, and I'm going to declutter the Pinktastic shade. All right, so the rest of these are all Wet n Wild, so let's just kind of reorganize a little bit here. Let's talk about these beasts. These have been around for a while. They were originally part of the Fergie collection, and then they moved them and I think renamed them. So the first one on the left here is Boozy Brunch. I've seen a lot of people with medium skin tones really highly recommend these. I do think the formula on both of these is great. It is pretty, it is just too much of a brassy gold for my skin tone. This one is more pink, and it's all have a Cosmo, and it is pretty, but once again, I just think it is too dark of a pink for my skin tone. These are both ones that I'd recommend if you have light medium to medium skin or even deeper skin tones. I think these are really pretty. The formulas cannot be beat. They just don't work for my skin tone. So these two are gonna get passed along. Okay, one that I know I do wanna keep is the Color Icon. They call this a bronzer. That is laughable. It is in Reserve Your Cabana. This is a very soft, natural highlight. If you are looking for something that is just gonna naturally lighten your skin without adding a ton of shimmer or gloss to your skin, I would absolutely recommend this. I've actually seen people use this as an all over face powder. They actually compared it to an Hourglass powder and used it all over the face. I found it to just make my skin a little too shimmery. I think this is just a really natural highlight and one that I would love to keep in my collection for those days where I just don't want metallic highlighting on my skin. So I love this. I highly recommend it. All right, so now let's work our way through these limited. Oh, hold on. I was gonna say limited edition, but let's actually pull this out. This was limited edition last summer. This is the Precious Petals highlighter that everyone went absolutely nuts for from Wet n Wild. It is a beautiful metallic highlighter. Once again, I think it is probably a dupe for Champagne Pop. It is so stinking pretty, but it just is too dark for my skin. Every time I put it on, it just looks odd. Oh, that makes me so sad. But this one is going to get passed along. This was also limited edition. I think this was spring 2016. This is the shade Where the Dreamers Go. I actually kept this one because it was my favorite. It was the lightest. And I also believe it is a dupe for MAC's Lightscapade, which is we'll talk about here in a little bit. Does that look really washed out to you guys? I'm gonna feel really upset if this whole video has been completely washed out. So I think this is a dupe for MAC's Lightscapade, in my opinion. So if you have this, you have MAC's Lightscapade. I can't necessarily say it's a dupe that everyone can go out and buy. I like it, but I have Lightscapade, so I am gonna go ahead and declutter this. Wet n Wild Gold Bar Highlighter. This came out at holiday last year. This is, once again, a beautiful highlighter that is just too ding dong dark on my skin. It just shows up slightly brassy. So I'm going to pass this along to someone with a deeper skin tone that will get a heck of a lot more joy out of it. It is a beautiful highlight though. All right, last but not least are the two Wet n Wild highlighters from this year. These are the limited edition ones. The Sweetest Bling, which is a pinky highlighter, and Lilac to Reality, which is an iridescent purple highlighter. So this pink one is absolutely beautiful. It is a very metallic pink. These are like in your face pink. And I'm actually wondering if the JCat one that I kept is a dupe for it. Code, please. Nope, JCat is lighter. So I think this is really pretty. I've not played around with it a ton. I do want to keep it. The lilac one, however, I do think I'm going to declutter. It is just one of those, it had a ton of glitter shimmer particles in it, which I hate. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the pink one for the time being and declutter the purple one. Okay, so here are some of my higher end highlighters, with one exception, and I'm gonna yoink it right now. This is the Ulta Illuminating Powder. This is one that I picked up. This is Yellow Diamond Illuminator. And I should have known when I bought it that I wouldn't like it. It's light, there's no getting around that, but it is that yellow, slightly greenish color, similar to the JCat Beauty one that I decluttered earlier. So this is actually gonna go bye-bye as well. All right, let's start down here with these two MAC ones. This is MAC Lightscapade. I really like how this looks on my skin. I would also put this in the natural category. Great sort of pearly white shade for fair skin. Love this. Definitely hanging on to that. And then this is MAC Soft and Gentle. It is the cult classic that everybody loves. I actually find this has a tiny bit of glitter. It's about as glittery as I like to go, but I also think it's one of those sort of natural toned ones. I would say very similar to the Essence Pure Nude with maybe just a little bit more shimmer to it. I can actually pull this off. It doesn't do anything to brighten my skin, but it definitely gives me some glow. So I'm gonna hang on to these two. All right, so I have two Becca highlighters. One is full-sized, and this is in Moonstone, and one in little sample kit in the shade Opal. And here is my challenge. Let's see, I'm gonna swatch these side by side. These are fairly intense. I don't actually find that these last very well on my skin. I think they last part of a day, but not all the day. They're a beautiful highlighter. I am gonna go ahead and pass along Moonstone. It's just a little dark for me. Hopefully you can see here, Moonstone is the smaller one. It's definitely a slightly deeper tone. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass on Moonstone to somebody else, and I'm gonna keep Opal. All right, let's talk about this one. This is one from Bare Minerals in the Shining Moment. It is one I picked up at a CCO. That is a cosmetic company outlet. You can find them at outlet malls. It's just too gold for me. It's too brassy on my skin tone. The formula is light. I'm not actually sure that Bare Minerals makes this anymore. They just launched a new round of highlighters, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass this one along. Another one that I'm gonna pass along is this one from Inglot. I got this off the Beautylish website. This is their multicolor system highlighting powder, kind of like a shimmer strip. You should be able to go light to dark. The biggest problem I have with this is it just doesn't show up. It's incredibly stiff. I couldn't find any brush that would work. Nothing shows up on the skin. The packaging is lovely, but this one's gonna have to go. One that is definitely staying is the Balm's Mary Luminizer. I have used the heck out of this. I've made a decent dent. This is that perfect champagne gold. This is as gold as I can go. It is fairly intense, but you can definitely sheer it out. I travel with this a lot, and phone call and interrupted and had to take it real fast. So Mary Luminizer, not going anywhere. I love this. This is about as champagne gold as I will go. So keeping that. Another one that I'm hanging on to, and I'm gonna put it next to it as contrast, is the Pure Highlighter. This is the shade Afterglow. This is one of those supernatural ones. Similar tone, but just a little less intense. So if you like the tone of Mary Luminizer but found it a little too metallic for your tastes, I would recommend picking up the Pure Highlighter in Afterglow. It got a little bit of hype on YouTube, but I definitely think it's one that is underrated out there in the makeup world. Another one that I'm keeping is Dandelion Twinkle. My biggest problem with this is that it is super expensive, but I think it gives just the most amazing sort of wet look to the skin. So I'm not passing this on. It is rather pricey. I've got a blog post on this. I'll link it down below so you guys can read more about my review of this, but not parting with this one at this point. One that I do think I'm going to part with is this one from Julep. Is the shade Champagne. It just feels really stiff and I get very little color payoff and the tone is kind of off for me. So this one is one that I'm gonna go ahead and pass along. One that's probably my favorite in my collection is the Laura Mercier highlight in 01, and this is their Matte Radiance. I don't know why she says matte. There's nothing matte about this. It is a baked product, but it is stunning. Once again, this is one of those natural sort of lit from within highlighters that is good for any skin tone, any age. If you deal with texture on your skin, I would highly recommend picking this up. Just doesn't emphasize any texture at all, so highly recommend this. Okay, Bobbi Brown land. I have two highlighters. I have Bronze Glow and Pink Glow. These were some of my early highlight purchases. And I don't know what the heck I was thinking when I bought Bronze Glow. It is way too dark and bronzy for my skin tone. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Pink Glow, however, is stunning and I love it and I will not be parted from it. It is one of my original pink highlighters. These are very wet, very metallic looking, so passing on Bronze Glow, keeping Pink Glow. Okay, last up, this is Ofra's Beverly Hills highlighter. I like this, the fact that you can kind of customize your shade based off of which section you dip into a little bit more. I am going to keep this. I like especially swatching down in these lighter shades. You can get a very white highlight, which I don't have a lot of that sort of white metallic. It is very intense though. It's also very soft. I had purchased this one myself, traveled with it, it broke into a million smithereens, and then I actually got this in a BoxyCharm a few months later. I was super happy to have it back in my collection, but it is definitely one that you need to handle with care. Okay, last section of higher end highlighters. Let's start with these two from Makeup Geek. This is the shade Glitz. It is probably the pinkest highlighter that I own. And then this is the shade Lit, which is a duochrome. This one is a very bright white silvery one. I really like the silvery tone of this. And then Lit is a duochrome yellow. And it's really pretty, but I gotta be honest, it starts to go that greenish gold color again. So for as much as I thought I was gonna like it, I actually think I'm going to keep Glitz, and I'm gonna pass on Lit. I think Lit can find a better home. Two that I know I'm not passing on are from Lorac. These are their illuminating highlights. This lighter one is in Starlight, and this pinky one is Moonlight. These are probably some of my favorite highlighters. I think they're incredibly underrated. This is a very light champagne gold, and then this is a very sort of natural pinky flush to it. I love both of these. My whole hand is getting really illuminated, guys, so I'm sorry these swatches aren't the best, but I'm going to be hanging on to both of these for sure. One highlighter that actually surprised me was the Too Faced Love Light. This is in Blinded by the Light. I thought this was going to be massively metallic. I know people have complained about hard pan, but I think it's not necessarily hard pan as much as it is just how the formula wears. This is actually a lot more natural than I thought it was going to be. I think this is a beautiful highlighter. I have nothing bad to say about it. I was expecting something more intense than I got, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. I love the tone of it. I think it wears well. Yeah, all in all, I think this is just a massive hit. The one that I know I'm keeping, this is the Christian Dior. This is my most expensive highlight. This is in the shade 01. I really want the pinky toned one. This is sort of one of those, also doesn't necessarily brighten my skin, kind of matches my skin tone, gives me a very natural sort of, natural, that's funny, that's not natural, but it gives me a very skin-like color to my skin, and I really love how this wears. It's super fancy. It comes in this very awesome little velvet pouch, which I will keep it in to keep it nice and shiny, so this is going nowhere. One that I am decluttering, which makes me sad, this is from a Korean brand called Beyond. I actually picked this up when I was in South Korea. It's just too gold. This one I am going to pass along. One that I am going to keep that is my favorite duochrome. This is the Pat McGrath duochrome highlighter. This is has such a crazy purple shift to it. This is from their iridescent pink line. This is the craziest highlighter I own. My husband's the one that actually found her highlight kit for the first time online and told me about it, so I'm definitely keeping this one. This is brand new to my collection. This was the Mally highlight and blush kit that I just got as part of the Ulta sale. I have not really played around with this. I'm a little nervous that this is going to be too gold on my skin just looking at it. But I do want to play around with it. The texture looks nice, so I'm going to hang on to it for the time being. This one here is from Laura Geller. It is a sample of their baked highlighter in Golden Rose, and I have not tried this one either. This is one of those ones that I think is going to be natural and very pretty on the skin, so I'm going to hang on to that as well. And then this little dude that's been hanging out over here, I'm just not ready to part with him yet. He's too new to my collection. I may come back and declutter him at some point, but I'm going to go ahead and keep Crystal Sands 104 from JCat. These are all the highlighters that I'm keeping here, and these are the ones that I am decluttering. I'm actually keeping 30 highlighters and getting rid of 23, so I got rid of 43% of my highlighters as well. So that's pretty good. 41% of bronzers and 43% of highlighters. I'm not unhappy with that. I still think it is a large collection. 30 highlighters is nothing to joke at. And I still have some highlighting palettes we haven't talked about yet either. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. If you like these declutter videos, keep tuned to my channel. Make sure to subscribe. I will be doing a lot more of these here in the near future. I will link the ones that I've done down below in a playlist. I've done my blush collection. That is up on the channel. And then I will be moving on to face palettes and cream bronzers and highlights next. So keep your eyes peeled for new videos from me. And I hope you all have a great day. Look forward to seeing you guys on all my social media channels. Bye now.